Hi, everybody. Welcome to day three of going through the book, The Science of Getting Rich. Um, I'm in the, I'm in, the last chapter that I read was a pretty quick one. Um, it was You're Right to Be Rich, and I'm going to go through this chapter, but this chapter is significantly different. It's going to take a little bit more time to get through it. There's a lot more meat to chew on. And how you guys like my red messed up glasses? If I lean down and they fall off, try not to laugh at me. It's just that I didn't bring my other ones, so this is what I have for now. So this chapter is called "There Is a Science of Getting Rich," and just like the other days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little bit and talk. I have no notes. So just the notes that I've written while I've been studying this. And if you hear machinery in the background, there's things going on. I'm at work. So anyway, you're going to hear some things, and I'm just kind of going to let it flow out and see how it goes, and you'll hear what's on my heart and what some of these things mean to me as I read and go through it. So let's go ahead and get started. There is a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science like algebra or arithmetic. There are certain laws which govern the processes of acquiring riches. Once these laws are learned and obeyed by any man, he will get rich with mathematical certainty. Um, I like that because it's true. The more as I've studied, I've come along some of these laws, the law of compensation and the other spiritual laws that we're going to be discussing coming up here in the future, and I've discovered that they work. They really do work. And so when I first read this the first time, I really was like, okay. Um, but the laws that govern the universe are so precise. If the moon was just a little bit further away, we would all drown. If it was too close, it would do so many things. And the gravity of the moon keeps us perfectly in balance. It keeps the oceans where they're at, and all of those things are adjusted perfectly. In fact, I'm a fan of of science, and one of the things that I found out that there's 32 dials, actual 32 mathematical principles that our Earth is in the perfect position, the way that it spins, how fast it spins, and all of those things. And I found out that there's 32 of those variables, and if one of those variables are off, we're screwed. That's incredible. That tells us that there's a God, and or there's somebody that's controlling this, and that somebody has written the principles, the ones that we're talking about here today. Um, I'm going to move on here. It says the ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way. Those who do things in this way, whether on purpose or accidentally, get rich, while those who do not do these things in a certain way, no matter how hard they work, they're not able to get rich. They remain poor. This is true. I mean, if you um, there's I think it goes on here, and it might even say where there's a spot. It says where intellectually brilliant people sometimes are poor, um, and blockheads sometimes are get rich. If you look at some of the richest people in the world today, you'll find out that the richest of the rich didn't even graduate high school. Or they were high school. I think even Oprah Winfrey. So the richest of the rich are really people like Richard Branson, who didn't graduate high school. I mean, he just dropped out at age like 15, and that was it. But at age 19, he bought his first island. So I like stories like that because those are just people who get after it and get it done. The ability to do things in a certain way is not due solely to possession of talent. Here it is. For many people who have talent remain poor, while others who have very little talent get rich. There are some people that have zero talent. I'm reminded of a guy, and I think I got it written down here in my notes. I'm reminded of a guy named Glenn Turner. And Glenn Turner was a very small guy. He had a hair lip. He talked funny. He lost a lot of people's money in the very beginning. But Glenn Turner read he read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and didn't realize that it was written in the 20s. He just read it, and he just took everything that the guy said and believed it. And when he did that, he crushed it. He outsold Zig Ziglar. They were both working in the sewing machine business, and Glenn Turner outsold him. And he started a company called Holiday Magic, which was one of the first multi-level marketing companies. And he made so much money, it was crazy. He ended up buying a helicopter factory and doing some things like that. And not only, but what's interesting is the government was so mad about how much money he was making, they passed laws to actually prosecute him. And he just found out a way to do it. So, and if you look at Glenn Turner, I mean, the guy was a blockhead. He really was. But he just got a hold of a truth and believed it and ran with it. So I'm going to go on and read this, go through here and kind of read a little bit what I've got highlighted. It is evident that they do not get rich because they possess talents, abilities that other men do not have, but because they happen to do things in a certain way. What did he do in a certain way? I mean, this certain way is a thing. There's a whole chapter developed or in this book about doing things in a certain way, and I don't want to get into that or just to skip ahead, but I'm going to in a little ways. It says, from all these things, we must come to the conclusion that getting rich is a result of doing things in a certain way. How do people do those things in a certain way? They do those things, and I'm going to talk to when we get about that chapter. It's doing it in faith. It's doing it in faith. It's doing it in believing what you're doing. That's what they're doing. They're just acting out in faith. The question arises here whether this certain way may not be so difficult that only a few may follow it. That cannot be true. We have seen so far that as natural ability is concerned, talented people get rich, blockheads get rich, intellectually brilliant people get rich, and very stupid people get rich. Physically strong people get rich, and weak and sickly people get rich. Some degree of ability to think and understand is of course essential, but as far as natural ability is concerned, any man or woman who has the sense enough to read and understand these words can get rich. That was great news for me. Anybody who can read these words and do what it tells them to do has the ability to get rich. Getting rich involves the necessity of dealing with men and of being where there are people to deal with. And if these people are inclined to deal in the way that you want to deal, so much better. But that is about all as environment goes. If anybody in your town is getting rich doing the same thing, Jenna, let's just say we have a CBD oil company. If anybody in your town is getting rich with the CBD oil company, you can too. And you could go on and on and on, because you can too. There's plenty of worms out here for everybody to take of. There's plenty of things for us to do it, to get rich. Plenty of opportunity. It says, getting rich is not dependent on you engaging in some particular business, but upon learning to do things in a certain way. It says, if you are now in business that anyone else is locally is getting rich in the same business, while you are not getting rich, it is because you are not doing things in a certain way. We have to do things out of faith. We have to do things. Sometimes you got to get to the spot where you're saying that you're just going to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is going to be the end result. I'm trusting. No one is prevented by getting rich by the lack of capital. Oh, sure. If you have money, it helps you to get rich. You can advertise. You can do all these things that a lot of people can't do. And there are people that get rich quickly who started off with money or who have an endless background of money. But that's not true. You can start anywhere. Bob Proctor started out as a cleaning guy. I mean, he was literally cleaning floors, and he started applying these principles and these laws that we're talking about. And about a year later, he was making $100,000 a year cleaning the same floors. What changed? Jim Rohn was milking cows. Sorry, somebody's here. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I am at work. So uh, I was looking through my notes here just a second ago, and I wanted to make mention of there's something that was in here that I wanted to get out and about being in a certain business. Um, I know um, I know these two guys. Um, they're twin brothers, and they're in the exact same business. And one seems to be prospering much more than the other, but they're twin brothers in the same business in the same town. You know, who's doing one in a certain way, and and one is incredibly successful. One's doing okay. Um, but I had to say that so it really doesn't matter what business you're in. It's about doing things in a certain way, and and you have to also be around people. You know, it's tough to get rich in the middle of a desert. It really is. You need to be around people. You really do. Um, and and you could be way out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that's awesome. But it does help to be around at least some people. I know some people that uh, are complete hermits, you know, and they don't want to talk to anybody. I know a guy that lives on a 38-acre plot of land, and he lives on a dead end road in the middle of the country in a place where there's really no town. It's actually between two towns, and there's really nothing there. Um, and I guess you could get rich, going on the internet and doing stuff like that, but he doesn't want to do any of those things. If you don't want to talk to people and you don't want to get out of the house and you don't want to do anything, you could read this book, 100 times, but until you put some action behind what you're reading, the results are going to be the same. And so you have to be willing to change. If you're not comfortable talking to people, then you're going to have to work on that area of your life where you feel comfortable talking to people, and we can help you with that. But there is a point where you're going to have to get out. You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to do some things. You're going to have to do a little bit of sales. You're going to have to make a couple deals. But once you've done it, you'll find out that it's not as difficult as you might think it is. But you have to get out of your comfort zone. I listen to a guy every morning that John Daniels turned me on to. His name is Ray Stedman, and he said that every single day has a cross to bear. Every day has a cross to bear, and what that means is that every single day you're going to have to do something that you didn't necessarily want to do. Every single day you're going to have to do something that you didn't necessarily want to do. The other day, I had to make a late payment on something, and I had to call them and say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make this payment on time. It's going to be a little late. We're between paydays, and we've had a few things happen, family emergencies. So I had to call them. That was an uncomfortable phone call. I didn't want to do it. Sometimes I'll let Sully do it because she's bolder than me. But but uh, but I went ahead and I bit the bullet, and I bore that cross. And every single day has a cross to bear. It really does. Am I going to get up on time to go do this appointment? Um, you know, choose action instead of procrastination. That's all. Just choose action instead of procrastination. But this chapter ends that it's ends really by saying this. It says your present business and your present location, do those things in a certain way which will cause success. If you do things in a certain way, it will cause success in your present location. So it doesn't necessarily matter what business that you're in. There's I tell people, if you're acting in a certain way, you could be licking carpets for a living, and you're going to prosper. And that's about it. That was chapter 2, and it was kind of a short chapter. Tomorrow or when I can, we'll go through chapter 3. And chapter 3, it says opportunity. It's not monopolized. Opportunity is there for everybody. So the name of the chapter 3, is opportunity monopolized? And we know that it's not. So without that, guys, you're awesome. Love you all. God bless you, and have a good night.